This is Spotter, a recruiting intelligence MVP I built over about 26 hours this weekend. It scrapes client jobs, extracts open roles, scores them against reusable keyword sets, and enriches the most relevant matches and gives me a workflow to review everything all at once in one place. But the cool thing about this isn't just that it works, and it does work, but what astounded me, and I think why I spent 26 hours on a weekend doing this, is how fast the loop became once I found out that I could do design, product, engineering, QA, and research in parallel, but also in different loops. On the left, you'll see the original design artifact that I started with. I actually had this running and was built on top of a previous prototype that I built. On the right is the finished product. We can take a look at the dashboard and see the runs that I have. If I take a look at this one, I can see these are the 5 clients that we scraped their recruitment page for. If I want to see which roles got matched, I can expand that and look here. If we want to know how you configure clients, you go here, you can add a new client and pick which keyword sets and what's their careers URL. For a given run, I've called them scrapes because we're going out and scraping job pages. You can configure whether they're enabled or not for that run, and then you can go back here and kick it off. I won't do it now because I'm out of Firecrawl dev credits. UI area here is keywords stratified by seniority and discipline. So you could go and pick, I want to look for a data engineering role, for example, and then I could add a keyword. And then I could also assign that set of keywords to a specific client. And I can do that here. And when the scrape runs and one of these things is produced, then it will use those keywords to score the results. Because you can see here, like for Betterment, we had 37 and we only matched 10 based on that. So you can see the scoring metric here as well. You can see which were the primary tech things that showed up here. The product problem here that we're trying to solve is recruiting intelligence. I wanted a way to configure clients, define these reusable keyword sets, and then run the scrapes and surface the roles that actually matter to us being able to find and plug in good candidates. So on the dashboard, it is like the operational view. We can see those runs, we can expand into results, we can inspect matches and understand what our scoring system thought was relevant. And clients is where our companies live, and we can control which ones are active. We can edit them in line. One of the design principles that I used when I was building this was progressive disclosure. And keywords is where the qualification logic lives. So these sets are reusable across clients. You can assign them to multiple clients, and they're grouped by discipline versus seniority so that the scoring model reflects how the product actually thinks about relevance. This is probably enough of the product surface area that we could put it in front of users. We could get qualification to test some things out. I've already validated a whole bunch of assumptions. So let's talk about like how this got built, because I think that's one of the more interesting things. I started with a version of this that I had already built and ported over from a different code base. And Pencil, you can check out Pencil. Here, you can plug it right into your model. Right now, I have mine set up to use Claude Code connected via subscription and GPT Codex. Pencil was a huge unlock for me because I have a design background. This let me think in terms of the design and the aesthetics. But with Pencil, you can describe a direction and get variations really quickly. This is roughly organized in terms of how it happened when I started on Friday. I had Pencil organize all of the assets here. If I zoom out, you can see how many there are. Before I had asked it to organize it based on the timeline, it was a mess. So I'm not going to dive into all of this. These are all components that you can extract, that you can modify them. It's like a Figma-based interface. But let's do a demo to show you something. We'll undo it after, but let's have Pencil, and I'm holding the Option key here. Let's get an agent to spin up. This is a task that I need to do. So if we look at these red treatment for these icons, I don't really like them. And there was a couple other places where we have red hover states. I don't really like this. So imagine I want to kick off a task where I want to get rid of these icons, or I want a different treatment, maybe something more muted or gray. I'm going to take a screenshot of that And zoom out here. This is the loop that I got into with pencil. I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to select it. Pencil knows that I have the object selected. Use Super Whisper to talk to pencil. The trash can icon here doesn't really fit the design aesthetic, right? We've got a primary color of green or teal and a secondary color of orange on the black, but the trash can is red. So I think we should come up with an alternate treatment for it, maybe just like a gray or a muted. Can you find trash can icons in the design artifacts and then update them to be a different color? So it can spin up parallel agents to do this, to go make a whole bunch of design changes. It's going to go look here. And if we zoom out, now we can see there, that's a good example. We saw the cursor there where it was looking for stuff. And so you have to hunt for where it's looking across all of these things. What's down here, there, it just updated these. You can see now it's taking a screenshot. Probably the coolest part is you get to see the cursor of the agent. It's going to read the design spec. It's going to update that design spec. If you're curious about what that design spec looks like, I can pull it up here. Through the loop I was using with pencil, it would just keep updating this artifact. This was really useful because it had all the direction, CSS variables, everything. And I could just feed this to Claude Code and have it do things. Yeah, anyway, this shows a little bit of how the design loop goes. Is you find something you don't like in what you've built. I think my early prompts were things like, I want to come up with an alternative color scheme for this. I talked to it a bit about what the product goal was, and this is not what it landed on originally. On the right are more screenshots of the design iterations that I went through. I went through a phase where I didn't like the modals and wanted to get rid of them. Here was the first version of the modal, and then I was like, if we're going to do modals, we might as well design them. This was an early iteration where I hadn't yet landed on the dark background for the editing panes, which I came up with, which you can see here. When you click on something, you get this like nice orange treatment. Figuring out how to add tooltips, hover states. It's just super rapidly able to generate these high fidelity artifacts that are really easily transposable into code. Here's another one. I had directed it and said, we should do inline editing as much as possible. Locality of behavior. More iterations, still light mode. I was working on designing the parsed payload and the copy JSON button here. Oh yeah, I wanted to do some landing page treatments. So many design iterations I went through in the 26 hours. It was empowering to have pencil as this partner. It does have rough edges, permissions friction, weird agent behavior. Like sometimes it's spun up like 160 agents at once. And then the fans on my CPU spun up. But even with those issues, it was the fastest design iteration loop I have ever had. I'm really happy with where I ended up. Let's take a look at the code repo. This is it, basically. It's got Firecrawl under the hood. Firecrawl is a scraping tool, and you can give it an LLM prompt. I'm using that to do the first pass of scrape scans. When I go look at the root level page here, we get a really high level version of that. I'll show you what the prompt looks like. This is the first level prompt that gets sent off to Firecrawl. And we want to have it try to classify some things. If I go to this jobs page, for example, I go to careers, view open roles. We want to grab the links and the titles. You don't get much unless you go to the detailed pages for a lot of these recruiting platforms. This is Ashby. It's useful enough that we can try to classify things. And the classification model is a good starting place. And then there's a fan note. We saw there was 61 links for this one, but we only matched 18. We're only going to go find the details for those 18 pages. I can look up this particular senior software engineering SRE job. And this is where Firecrawl does another batch scrape to grab all of that stuff. I wanted to talk about what worked well about this setup and the loop with Pencil. It was the fact that Pencil became my R&D lab. I could just go and whatever idea I had, speak an idea and see it emerge. I could have any kind of idea. When I was designing this, I had a crazy idea. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if there was a green connection with a little green ball here and then a line, an SVG line that drove over here and connected to this thing. So I did a few design iterations with Pencil and it didn't take much time. And then I tried to ship it in the browser because it's really quick to go from this to the code. And yeah, it did not work well at all. But then I could revert and figure out something different really easily. The other thing that I did was Claude ended up becoming my implementation partner. I used Zed and I had Claude doing implementation and stage and commit and run tests. And then I had GPT 5.4 with Codex. I kicked off research plans and then I had Claude go and implement them. I'd say I started that about halfway through the 26 hours. At first, I was just exploring Pencil and digging into the details there. It definitely felt like I was orchestrating a whole army of agents because Pencil itself, you can control the parallelism. It can spin up, I think, up to 6. I think it defaults to 2 here. I usually just left it at 2, but there were times it spun up so many more. All of this momentum carried me through and I could ship and iterate much quicker and close the feedback loop. This felt a lot less like development and a lot more like orchestrating a team of specialists around a very tight loop. When you move this fast, you get a chance to see what happens in 4 or 5 months of iterating to ship an MVP to customers. I built this over a weekend and I can show it to our users and get feedback. I've made assumptions about what they're going to want. Like it even sends an email. There's my email preview. This is using resend. I was able to spin that up. I was able to refactor so many times. I think I swapped out headless UI for base UI, did an upgrade of Vite 7 to Vite 8. I refactored all of the database IDs to use Stripe style prefixes for the IDs. I did so many design iterations. I built a full user management flow so that I can impersonate and revoke sessions and create users and pick which role I want to be. The sky is the limit on how fast you can move with this stuff. The biggest takeaway for me is not that I shipped this MVP quickly. It's like I said, I compressed what would normally be months of cross-functional iteration into a weekend. Design product decisions, architecture, testing, observability, delivery concerns interleaved instead of waiting on each other. For me, that makes development more fun. But getting feedback and having something polished to show somebody in a weekend that actually works to kick off a job. If I look at what clients I have here, I'm just going to disable a bunch of them and I'll try to run a job. I think I'm out of Firecrawl tokens, but it'll kick off the job and at least you'll see. Let's go dashboard and let's go run. So yeah, it's queued up. I got my notifications. It's a full product, right? I can test it all locally and verify it. I just want to build stuff like this and iterate and get it into the hands of users, get it in front of people, and then learn what matters. I made a whole bunch of design decisions in here that may not actually work for qualification department. Yeah, there are so many things that I love about the fact that I was able to do this. I've got debug views in here. The fact that I was able to get to this level of fidelity in 26 hours with a full working product and user management and everything feels like that we are living in an era where if you can draw from your deep knowledge of the product and engineering development cycle, you can do something like this in a weekend. If this is possible in a weekend, and now that I found Pencil, I feel like I can just go and do whatever I want, then all of these feedback loops have to be compressed. I have a couple of other artifacts that I'll share in the video description. One is a full timeline that pulls out the types of work that I did. I got this by recording design retrospectives, and then I classified all the Git commits. I'll share this and you can go look through to see exactly what happened. Because I think people see this and then they don't understand that there is intention and that there is work behind this. So I won't go through this all, but I'll share that. I'll probably share a longer video on Pencil. I hope this gets you excited about what's possible and what you can do. The loop is definitely a lot tighter and you can get to the point where you have a product that's real enough to test. And I think that changes the game. And that's what we're seeing in the industry right now.